tonight we're going to be, or today, we've got a very full show. We've got a lot of information to get through, so we'll be cracking on with it and getting to the point straight away, hopefully. And we'll also try to keep those explanations as short as possible. The changes we're going to be talking about are all quite important for anyone that's flying a drone in the UK. The first one's really an update point, but the rest are very important. And to help with our mission this evening, we're actually going to be joined by the man himself, directly from the shower room. I still have to say that, I'm sorry. Directly from the shower room, and I actually haven't seen, you've got quite a calm shirt tonight.
From the gents at King's Cross.
Now
yeah.
I think I prefer the shower room, actually.
It's a warm shirt.
This one's warm. It's very nice.
It's very important when we've got the temperatures we've got and the lovely flying conditions.
Exactly. Right, we're going to crack on with it. I promise we're not going to be two old men. I've just called you old, sorry. But two old men. Yeah, we're getting there, aren't we? Rambling on. He says rambling on. So today we're going to quickly explain a small but important change in the drone code is the first one that we're actually going to be coming up. Then we've got, it's actually one that we had a hand in changing. We'll also be taking a look at the huge change to the DJI geofencing system, as well as updating on 2 new sets of permanent flight restrictions. Don't just take one set of flight restrictions out with you, take 2 new sets of flight restrictions out with you. And there, of course, therefore, every drone flyer will need to adhere to those and will need to know. But first up, let's look at the drone code change, which is going to be an interesting one. So regular viewers of Geeksvana will remember a video that we released back in September, which was discussing an issue with the drone code. In fact, I think we titled it something like, "Is the drone code safe?" We thought, hence the title, that it actually could cause some danger. Now, this was the wording was basically informing people to check their drone app for airspace restrictions. The intention there was for people to check airspace apps, of course, but the wording actually could mean that drone flyers would end up relying on their manufacturer app, like the DJI Fly app, for instance, where restrictions are obviously a little bit loose, shall we say. So following the video, we held a discussion with the CAA and they agreed that they would actually be coming up with a change. It was a very quick exchange of emails and they were very, very helpful. And then there then followed a safety notice, which we remember very well, don't we, Graham? And eventually a change in the actual drone code. Now, this was a popular change. I'm aware of a few parties who have requested the change for a good while now, just in terms of clearing up some of the confusion. So let's have a look. Let me get into the right little box over here. And let's have a look at that, shall we?
Is it worth mentioning at this stage, Sean, that there have been a couple of changes to the drone code over the last 12 months, which don't get flagged by the CAA. They just get released.
It is worth saying, because actually it's worth always looking at the beginning of the drone code, because up whichever page you're on, at the top it will always tell you the drone model aircraft code, and it will tell you when it obviously was published 2019, but then it gives you the last updated, and you can click in there to look at things like all the updates, and it will tell you exactly what was changed and when. And as Graham says, you can see here, 2023, there's a few changes there.
We got one out in June as well.
Yeah, but there actually aren't. And I think one of these was you, wasn't it? Actually,
it was the June one. It was the needing the A2 to fly close to people.
That's right, with sub 500. This one, this bit here in the middle here. So it was a little bit further down, 0.7, which is the one that's now been changed, which basically talks about the drone apps. And now you've actually got a little click that opens up in a new tab, and it shows you the drone assist, the drone scene, and then talks about the fact that the manufacturer's apps aren't actually necessarily up to code. But again, drone assist, drone scene, between those two, I don't think you can really go too wrong. Obviously, you've got the only official portal, which is the only one that's really recognized 110%, which is the NATS one. You can actually click, and if you open this in Google Maps on your phone or on your desktop, it actually superimposes it on top of your Google Maps, which I find quite interesting. These, of course, will be all of the permanent restrictions, ENR 5.1, I think. ENR 5.1 data set. So it's obviously highly accurate from that point of view. And Yeah, so that's the change to the drone code. It basically just means that it keeps it tidy, I think, in particular for the newer flyers. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. People who were previously picking up a DJI and had all of that DJI data with altitude zones and blue zones around airports and red zones down the runway, and just very different to the actual FRZs, could get into trouble. But ironically, of course, DJI are now doing something a little bit different.
Yes, indeed, they are, which is helpful and unhelpful all at the same time. It's sort of one of those things where you kind of think of, be careful what you wish for sometimes with these things, isn't it? It's so with that short update on the drone code, and updating one of our previous videos for regular viewers, we'll move on to the next bit, which of course is the whole thing around DJI that Graham's just mentioned. And DJI have made a significant change to their geofencing.
Can I just mention, Sean?
Yes, of course.
So somebody has picked up on it. You have frozen.
Oh, have I?
Yeah, that's why I put my warm shirt on.
Are you trying to warm me up? Okay, let me. Perhaps we should have an AI version of me so that it doesn't freeze.
Switch it off and switch it on again.
There's always that, isn't there? Okay.
Never fails.
Okay, that should come back in 3, 2, 10. Yeah, Rattle Cage is saying, I knew Sean was AI, and Ace Audits, hi Ace Audits, is suggesting a ventriloquist. Well, I'm not talking about my preferences and where I want people's hands. Yeah. Elsmeg Frozen, do you want to build a drone, man? Aha, very good.
Tom Davis is just asking, under 250 gram, unaffected or not in this rule change? No change to it. The restrictions apply to sub 250 gram as they do to everything else.
Yes, this is, as in the introduction, this is for all UK drone flies. So anything you hear tonight, it covers everybody basically, because it's airspace. And airspace, everybody has to get the same permissions. Everybody has to do the same things basically. So whilst this camera is working, DJI have made a significant change to their geofencing in the UK and EU. Gone are all the restrictions full stopping you from flying your drone, which required you to go through a process to unlock them, but of course helpfully the drone wouldn't even take off, and instead we're left with what's called enhanced zones. Now this change is to help DJI comply with legislation, and they issued a very long, very interesting press release, which I'm not going to deep dive. Don't panic, everybody. This isn't going to be a 50-minute live stream, but actually we're not going to go. As I said, we're not going to go through that today. Instead, we'll talk about how this will impact your drone flying itself. Now, I have the map here. Oh, whoops, wrong button. Here we go. There we go. So here is the geo maps, the GeoZone map, the latest one from DJI. And certainly it's changed, hasn't it? And there was over the weekend, Rich over at Grey Arrows Drone Scene very kindly sent me a message on Twitter about it as well when his members started noticing it. And I got lots and lots of emails. My email inbox started melting around Saturday lunchtime when everybody was like, hang on a minute, what is going on? And of course, it is the fact that it's now moved down to, as you see as I hover my mouse across one of them, it's moved down to enhanced zones, enhanced warning zones. Now, this of course means that it's now vital. It's now so important that we all ensure that we're actually checking the airspace ourselves on things like Drone Assist and Drone Scene, because you absolutely need to know what's going on. I would also recommend that everybody actually signs up for Skywise, and I know it's signing up to a CAA thing. As my camera goes off again, but there we go. I'm gonna put the map back up. I know it's another CAA thing to sign up for. People don't like giving their information across, etc. I completely and utterly understand that, but equally we really need to ensure that we've got this down to pat, don't we? Because it's pretty important. But you've seen online some glitches happening to this, haven't you?
Well, I sort of had somebody contact me, and I can't remember which evening it was. He was going to fly at Farnborough the next day, which was always a tricky zone on the DJI system because it was there, but it was always hidden, and they never seemed to be able to sort that out.
Yeah.
And he tried to request just belt and braces, just try and put in a request to fly there. They said, no, sorry, can't help you with that. He turned up to fly, couldn't take off, and ended up having to link his phone to the device and go and get an authorization code,
which match up again, basically.
So he got off the ground in the end. But I think what happened was, when he was looking at the map, there was nothing on there. There were none of these enhanced zones. So I think it's taken a couple of days for all the data to get, the old data to get off and the new data to get into the DJI system.
It has, and I think it's the Fly app was the first one that was updated, and some of the people that have had problems that have messaged me seem to be on the Go 4 app and things like that. So I think there might be a bit of a crossover there from the point of view that the older apps, who knows, from that point of view.
I'm on the Go app with my Inspire 1, and I'm not sure anything's changed on that one, so that's going to be entertaining if I ever take it anywhere interested to fly. But yeah,
thank you, PG, for the £5 super chat. Start a fund for a new camera. You know, I've actually got there are currently 4 cameras in this studio, but only one of them is pointing towards me, unfortunately. But yes, on short shows, I don't really want to stop and put a new camera up there. But there we go. But thank you very much for the kind donation. I really do appreciate it. So this is also one of the things that I wanted to stress on this is, which is why I'm not going through the long, boring press release of why, because it's here and we have to deal with it. But it is something which is important, because once you've taken off and you've dismissed the enhanced zone, etc., and that type of thing, you've no longer got that, not assurance, but you've no longer got that extra ability of it. Of the DJI drone hitting the geofence and stopping, basically, which of course did happen. So they've no longer got that, have they? So when we're out flying, we're going to have to be very careful when we're close. And I know not a lot of people tend to fly right up against a restriction zone, but you do have to be careful that you're not going to stray into one.
Absolutely. I saw somebody post on Facebook, I think last week, asking, and this was the point where there were still restricted zones over prisons, and again we'll come to that in a
yes.
moment. But there were on the DJI app there were restrictions near a prison, and he was asking how would he know if he was near the prison or getting close if he was doing a roof inspection. And of course the answer is you plan your flight, you know where you're going to fly to, and you don't fly beyond that. And you need to have eyes on the drone to know exactly where it is and understand that.
No, indeed, and really planning your flight is so important at every level, isn't it? And it's it isn't a big hassle. You can have the drone assist app, or actually the drone scene site. Although it's not an app, it's a site that works on your mobile just as well as an app really these days. And between those two things, they have a lot of the same information. Drone Scene has a few other layers as well, but it gives you some good, accurate information that you can at least rely on. Now the CAA actually in the drone code linked to those as well. You've kind of got not a defense, but you've kind of got a bit of extra there from the fact that you're using the apps that they've said, hey, these apps have got the correct zones in them.
That's it. And if you just familiarize yourself with that aerial view on the map, the satellite view on the map before you fly, and just pick out a few key landscape items, big trees, a road, whatever it may be, and then if you're flying and your camera's pointing down because you're doing an inspection, well, you know what to look for on your camera. So if you're drifting over the road, see a load of tarmac, you may be drifting towards, I don't know, Windsor Castle or something.
Exactly, yes. Martin Casson in the chat, sorry, that your message just sort of piqued me as I saw it there. Hi all new to the channel, would it be possible to have a must-have app list, please? I actually have a video on that coming out next week. It's in the edit right now, the essential apps that you need and why for UK drone flights. So keep an eye out for that one. But certainly drone assist. Yes, please do.
Can I pick up on cheeky Oscar there? I missed a bit. Did you mention Skywise? What's the benefit of this? It's CAA system for, and I'm going to use a long word now, promulgating changes in theory and new information. So particularly during the summer, if they've got restrictions, airspace restrictions around flying displays, that sort of thing, you'll get the thing pinging throughout the summer telling you where not to fly.
Yes.
So it's well, you just go on, if you do it,
it's even useful for everything. It's if a consultation comes out, if they change a CAP document and decide to notify us, If there's anything that's happening, and actually it's a CAA wide system, so you can actually ask if you want to know everything that's happening for airliners and things, etc.
Yeah, helicopters,
balloons,
everything.
but you can
somehow I've managed to get registered for that, and
I was on the balloon list for such a long time. It's crazy, isn't it? And they get a decent amount of notifications actually. So, but even I even get them through for flying display consultations and that type of thing. They've got a lot of stuff going on there over at Gatwick. It's incredible. So yes, I think it's well worth it, but I can also understand why people don't want to give across their data. You've only got to give your username, your email address and a few bits like that, basically, to be able to sign up to it. I think they should sign up to it automatically or given the option when you register, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you've registered, they've already got your email address, so you're not giving them anything.
Just a little tick box to say yes, I'd like to sign up to Skywise as well. Then you're hopefully GDPR compliant. I'm not a GDPR expert, but I would have thought you would be. So
I'm just going to point out at this stage another little site called notaminfo.com. Always worthwhile. They have a flight map, and they grab and declare all of the NOTAMs that are doing the rounds. Yes. And it's a little bit more technical, but
it is. We do actually have a video coming up on how to identify NOTAMs. I haven't actually recorded it yet, but it's on our production list. But that might even be more important now. People are going to obviously have to be a bit more involved in it from the point of view of not having it there sat on the app. Right. That's the DJI update. We're going to move on to the next update, which is a quick update, and it's a couple of warnings to give around the approximately 110, count them, new restricted zones coming into effect as of January the 25th over prisons, young offenders institutions, etc. The zones will be populated onto ENR 5.1, which is the main data set. So therefore the changes, you don't need to know what that data set is, but the important part of that is it means it will update on the airspace apps. Altitude Angel, the people who run Drone Assist, have confirmed to Geeksvana that the zones will be showing correctly rather than just a general indication, because it's not always, this isn't a circular thing for in the same way as it is for aerodromes, etc. These are specific flight restriction zones of particular shape and size. This is important because the size of the restriction can vary. Now, I've actually got a picture here, which I will pop up on the screen. Sorry, Graham. You weren't expecting that.
That's your house, that is.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, thanks. It's a prison. I appreciate it. Not yet. So yes, this is HMP Pentonville, and basically that is looking at the fact that it is obviously you can as an FRZ. I think the way that we're used to seeing them as circles a lot of the time with restrictions, just a pure radius. It's something that I think people will be, will have to get used to. And if you look at it, that does cover it's not a massive area. It's the area that they said it would cover, but that's a lot of residential streets. It's a lot of area, isn't it, to cover? So we're really going to have to keep an eye out for these ones.
It is, and I feel quite warmly towards HMP Pentonville, because I did a roof survey just to the left of where Pentonville is there, and I would have been caught in that area. I mean, I know I would have got permission because of the people I was working with, but yeah, that would have made a difference to my planning.
But as I said, the good news is that whether you use Drone Assist, Drone Scene, or even the core map at dronesafetymap.com, these new restrictions will be showing. Now, one of the things that I wanted to draw people's attention to on this is kind of how the this is now going to go in the direct opposite of how the information's been offered before, because of course, previously we did have zones around some prisons, but they actually weren't for drones, were they? It was actually for helicopters only. So now it's sort of having to switch back around again and say, actually, it's not helicopters now; it's drones, basically.
Well. Of course, these areas are bigger than the prison areas used to be, and of course, a lot of people will have asked in the past and said, what's that area outside the prison, and been told, well, that's for helicopters.
Yeah.
Now it won't be as big as the helicopter area that will still be there, presumably, but it will be a bigger area than people are used to. So I can see one or two issues possibly coming up. It'll be interesting to see as well if DJI reflect it, if it's in
Yes.
In the data.
I was trying to let you chat for a few more seconds until my camera turned back on, actually. But,
I know.
Thank you for filling. But yeah, in actual fact, I believe that what is left on the DJI maps, and in fact, I'll pull it up because then it covers the fact that I'm not sure. Oh, I'm back actually. This is, I believe, based on ENR 5.1. So it will show again, probably enhanced zones. But it will only show as enhanced zones. So it's going to be even more important again to ensure that we're all really, really diligent on this and try to ensure what happens basically. And just, as I say, just be really, really careful. And we'll get used to it in the end. Once you get used to not just relying on the DJI drone, if that's what you do, you will actually feel like a more confident flyer in the end, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, somebody pointed out that it looked. It just gone off the top of the chat for me. Rob R386. That looks quite a large area. It's supposed to be based on 400 meters from the perimeter. And I did a little check on another prison I'm familiar with. Do you want to pop those pictures up, and I can just explain how they've got that area?
Yes.
The area is in some ways larger than it should be, but sort of won't hold that. So this is another prison I'm familiar with because, believe it or not, as a child, my mother used to deliver meat there, and I was in the van going round. So this is Gartree up in Leicestershire near Foxton.
That's tickled me more than it should have done, actually. So she was a delivery driver delivering.
She was a butcher's delivery driver. Fantastic. An old Morris van. Yeah,
that's
lovely.
Amazing. Morris van.
Can we have the next picture, please? Can we have the next slide?
We're both
please?
showing our age now.
Absolutely. So what I did this morning was I just grabbed the specific coordinates that are given in the schedule of the what's the bit of the bit of legislation that covers this. So I grabbed those coordinates, which are those outside ones further away from the prison. So there's 5 of those, and if we have the next slide, and if you join those points together, that gives you your restricted area. So you can see it covers the whole Gartree village there, the prison, and a lot of the farmland. Now those blue lines are 400 meters long, so you can see from those corners we are more than 400 meters from the prison. So you can say, hold on a minute, that's not paying fair. So if we go to the next slide.
Is it
and the next slide?
With the
so that's 400 meters, and those are all 400 meters. So it's going from those straight edges. So what they could have done, but it would be really complicated to write it in legislation, is do a radius from the corners.
Yes,
and that would have brought it round. So effectively, on all those corners, you are further than 400 meters from the prison, but that's just a function of the fact they've got to work from the corners to get you the
which is why Pentonville's so
straight.
So it is a rectangle because of course it's obviously it's a standard, it's a rectangle sized plot basically. So it's from where they're taking the things.
So next slide, that's what those the end of those little yellow rods gives you, and hey ho, it's really the shape of the prison, isn't it? So that's it.
No, but it's an interesting exercise to do as well, because it's always something that if you do draw it on from the actual data itself, I think that's always interesting exercise to be able to do. Yes, it's going to be on all of the maps, etc. So again, please don't panic looking at this that you're going to have to do this every time you go out flying to check there's no prisons.
I will.
The wonderful people at Drone Assist and Drone Scene will be doing all of that for you, which is frankly a wonderful service. So yes,
quicker than me.
So it is an important one, basically. So now we're going to talk again, actually, about some other flight restrictions, and hope the camera holds out here. Whilst we're talking about new flight restrictions for drones in the UK, it's important that we actually discuss the prohibited zones, which are now in place from the National Security Act. Now, again, I'm not going to go through this in too much detail this evening because there's actually already a long live stream of about 50 minutes, which thankfully tens of thousands of you watched. So thank you for that, from last year, which explains it, which I will link in the description after the show because I haven't done it yet. And there will also be a full video coming up on that as well, when the notification system's live, etc. But basically, as I say, I will link that in the description afterwards. But it is live, so it is important that we talk about it a little today, especially as we're already talking about other airspace changes and restrictions that are coming in. Firstly, I'll explain briefly what it is and why it impacts drones, as well as giving an update on the status in terms of how to find these new zones, etc. So the National Security Act is an act of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, which you might expect, which introduced new measures intended to strengthen the United Kingdom national security against espionage, interference in the political system, sabotage, and assassination. Where does drones come into that, Graham?
I'll tell you, but they'd kill me. Probably with a drone.
Yeah. Steady. Now, the Act actually repeals the Official Secrets Act of 1911, 1920, and 1939. So it is actually significant in terms of the change for security services. But as I say, what on earth does that actually have to do with drones? Well, it introduces new prohibited places. New provisions relating to prohibited places actually strengthen existing legislation in this area. It includes provisions covering entering, inspecting, or being in the vicinity of these places, and includes use of unmanned drones, electronic hacking, or other modern remote methods. Now, additional police powers are provided for ordering a person to cease their activity or move away from the place. Failure to comply with these police powers is an offence in itself, with a maximum penalty of 3 months imprisonment. Now, an example, this is incredible. An example was actually given: a person taking photographs of staff members as they enter or leave a prohibited place would commit the offence if they did so with a purpose that they knew or ought to reasonably to know is prejudicial to the safety or interests of the United Kingdom. So they're not trying to get people that are snapping things accidentally as they're walking past, doing a selfie of their latest new haircut, and they happen to get someone in the background. This is at its core something they're trying to catch very bad people with, essentially. A prohibited place can be a military building or location, such as even GCHQ or Secret Service locations. It can also include cars and factories if they've been designated so. Essentially, any location that's been approved by the Secretary of State. Now, this is live now. We do not have, as of yet, an organised, released way of identifying which sites they will be, but one is on the way. At the moment, we're basically told that it's being dealt with on a case-by-case basis. I think it would be unlikely you're going to get anything more than a please move on if you did fly at a location at the moment, and the powers are more likely reserved for genuine nefarious activity at the moment. But there will be more information and a system of notification and management coming soon, so I would actually expect it to start showing on things like Drone Assist, etc. as well. But we are talking about here, of course, a whole nother raft, a whole new set of flight restrictions, essentially. Yeah. And, it is literally going to be, we don't know the system yet. It will at some point be published in terms of how the Secretary of State decides, yes, you are a prohibited place. Be that, is it a factory that works on missile components, or is it a consulting firm that consults on behalf of the Home Office or something? What level will they decide is going to be very interesting, because then we are going to get, they're most likely going to be absolutely, FRZs of the actual land and property themselves. So they're not going to be like 500 meter radiuses or anything. But the inspect thing worries me, because once they are up as FRZs, technically you shouldn't be inspecting. Now, the punishment between accidentally going into one as a drone flyer and you are not a spy or not attempting to do anything against the United Kingdom is much lower. Yeah, well, how do they prove that exactly? Is much lower. It really is like that. So actually, how we work that differential out is also going to be interesting in terms of police powers. We will have a range of videos coming up on it, which we are working with our contacts on. But yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because with the prisons and now these, cities, that's quite a few extra zones.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine some of the more sort of military-based towns having, quite a few places where you could fly that you can't fly anymore, or you'll be hampered so much by being surrounded by these areas that it's probably not worth the risk. But we've got to wait and see. I think it's quite amusing that this quite a big change by essentially the secret services and the secret people has been kept secret from the people who might be breaking it. It'd be nice if they told us, wouldn't it?
I think it is one of those situations where it is very, very. I'm not going to say it's difficult, because obviously giving people information is easy. Very quickly, thank you very much, Newfoundland Drones, for your $10 super chat, super sticker. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Of the 292 people watching, whilst we wait for my camera to turn back on, could you all please hit that like button? It will make me smile, and maybe even put a different camera in here next time if I get over 100 likes before we finish the show this evening. But there you go. Look, do you know what? That's probably the best I've looked on YouTube, in my opinion.
That's good.
What do you reckon?
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect lighting for me.
Keep that look.
Do you think it's my perfect side, my perfect look, personally? But
I dread to think what you're doing while the camera's off.
I was actually still going. Do you think that's my perfect side, even though people couldn't see me? But that's YouTubers for you, isn't it, basically? But it is an important one, and I think it's one that we need to keep on our radar. It's also important that actually, if you do get somebody approaching you, whether or not, I'm not telling you whether you should argue with them, I'm not telling you what to do at all, as I always try and just give the information on this channel, but it isn't, at least if an officer or somebody does come up to you and say, actually, National Security Act, this is a prohibited place, I would love them to be able to show you how they can prove that it's a prohibited place. I mean, obviously, if you rock up at GCHQ, I would assume someone's going to have a problem with my Mini 3.
I think that's going to be on the map.
Flying over there. Thank you, Elsmeg, $5 for the webcam fund. Yeah, the ironic thing is, if I was using like a $10 webcam, it wouldn't have turned off, of course. I've got absolutely no idea what's doing that this evening, but there we go. The camera itself isn't turning off, but anyway, sorry.
I think it's worth pointing out, because this feels like everything's closing in on us. I think it's worth pointing out that there are countries in Europe not too far away where you can't fly over a village, a town, not military, just farming. You can't fly over somebody's property, full stop.
That's right.
So actually, getting permission to do anything is next to impossible unless it's in the countryside.
Yeah, exactly. And things like the prisoners coming in is nice and simple, in my opinion. I think it's been fairly well handled from the point of view that, yes, it's annoying. We don't want more, but actually more restrictions, but actually not flying over prisons. You can kind of see part of that. Perhaps it could have been a smaller radius, but actually, in the example you've shown, that wasn't really a problem. In the Pentonville, it's more of a problem for people that live in that area, because that in street number wise is actually quite a large area. So it's one of the things where I think the prison things have been handled very well. The National Security Act is still being worked through. Of course, it is so much more difficult, and because also okay, let's say all the TA centres, the territorial army centres, are marked as prohibited places. How do you contact them for permission to fly within their FRZ? How does that happen? And this is going to be something which is going to be interesting in terms of the specific category as well, isn't it? Because I think it will change how people have to work in terms of being able to apply for restrictions.
Absolutely, yeah. And if private companies are covered and they're not working at weekends, and you need to fly at the weekend, what do you do? Or is there?
I've got a feeling it will be a much. I mean, I suppose you could almost get I'm thinking off the top of my head now, but could you even get a general permission? You could get cleared, and then you could get a system.
Yeah, I've had SC clearance in the past.
Although, of course, also Drone Assist do have a landowner system on their thing where they can automatically, if someone's got XYZ, it can give them, that does cost money though. Someone somewhere would have to pay for that, and I don't think people would like to have to pay just to take off near a prohibited place, especially of course if you're not going to fly into it. But if it does go on to ENR 5.1, which you would have thought it would need to be updated on there, then actually that's fairly useful from the point of view it will be there. But we just need to remember. I can't wait to
see how they update car journeys in real time. And
Yeah. I think. Thank you, Bert Dynadrone, for the $5. We're working on getting the new camera. I appreciate it. Or certainly me working out why the wire is not working tonight when it has for over a year. And I tend not to touch the wiring when it's working, if you know what I mean. So something's obviously conflicting with something in the computer somewhere. But thank you, everyone. You've been extremely generous this evening. I really do appreciate it. And we're over 100 likes, so I'm also smiling for that reason as well. But yes, the car thing and things like that, I think when you designate a car a prohibited place, they really are talking about the very nefarious side of things. So that, because I'm sure, stopping espionage and stopping this kind of this nefarious activity is fairly difficult. So they need some quite specific legislation.
Absolutely,
in place.
They are trying to stop people using the freedom to use cameras, and that is really important for photographers. That
it's
must
important
be
for everybody. I mean, and this isn't a political channel, but it is important, isn't it? Because what we don't want to see is a situation where we end up with our freedoms being taken by the back door, even when we're actually saying, okay, yeah, prison FLZs are okay. This new National Security Act, it makes sense. It's a tough world at the moment. We need to be protected. But actually, where does that line get drawn, and who decides where that line is drawn, especially when it restricts the public from doing things for no reason of what they have, any kind of action that they've taken in their lives. That starts to worry me a little bit.
I'm all for stopping a terrorist sitting there with a camera for half a day taking photos of potential targets. I mean, but please, terrorists, don't do that. And perhaps they've had cases where they've had somebody doing that, and they walk up to them and say, "You can't stop me taking photos in public."
Yeah.
In which case, they need a tool to stop somebody doing that.
No, exactly. I think we're on a few watch lists. After saying the word terrorist and espionage and all the other things over and over again. So yeah, Rob RC is asking if a flying field is nearby, would this rule affect that RC models without a camera? Yeah, I mean, airspace is airspace. So whatever A1, A2, A3, Article 16, BMFA field, wherever you're flying, and pretty much whatever you're flying, unless it's an absolute toy, then you are going to be affected by the same rules, basically, in terms of airspace. So you are going to have to be careful from that point of view for any of the things that we've mentioned.
There is normally a process for getting permissions.
Yes.
And I would have thought a long-established flying site would be able to get permissions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for instance, there is a new danger area. Is it in Lincoln? And there is a BMFA club smack bang in the middle of that new flight restriction. No, it's where have the red arrows moved to? I want to say Waddesdon. Well, wherever the red arrows have moved to, that has given them a new training circle of flight restriction, which is up for certain hours of day and no TAM. And there is actually a BMFA club in the grounds within the FRZ of that, and they have an agreement with them, basically. So you're right, they will come to an agreement. There's a telephone number they can ring to say, hey, we're flying or we're not flying, and that type of thing. Yeah. But they're aware of it, basicly. So you're 100% correct in what you say there.
Yeah, I think you were right as well. Everybody's saying Waddington.
Can we? This is a good meta comment there from Argos Danny. It's good to see you, Danny. Hope you're well. Can someone Fat Boy Slim if I can have my drone back, please? Comment of the evening, I think, don't you? I think that's a really good one, especially as we haven't covered that story on the channel yet. But it's very funny. EFP drone footage, good to see you. Also, we need to take care of people's interests at, say, a prison or police station, as they may be vulnerable people. Absolutely, victims of sex crimes, etc., who shan't be filmed or identified. Completely agree with that, and I think that's always been one of the things that confused me about certain activities of drone flights and camera operations around police stations and things as well, from the point of view that people obviously could be going in, as he's saying, could be vulnerable people reporting a crime and that type of thing. I am not the person to decide where that line is, but I appreciate everybody out there who is exercising our rights, shall we say, in terms of making sure that, I'm not saying I support audit channels, by the way, or against them or anything else like that. But I'm certainly thankful that there are brighter people than myself out there that are working on that all the time. And it's so important, frankly, isn't it? It's such an important thing to ensure that we don't have those freedoms eroded. It sounds like, oh, it's just flying my little plastic drone, but actually freedoms are important.
Yeah. And that's what it is to you, because that's what you're doing, but somebody else might not be just doing that. And that's what we need to understand. There's got to be nuance there.
Yeah, no, exactly. A question here, Chris Hall. What is the difference between a Mini 3 Pro with a 2x zoom at 400 feet and a light aircraft at 2,000 feet with a telephoto lens camera? Yeah, I mean, there is now... Yes, I understand what you're saying in terms of technology, and it will be a very similar photo that they're able to take. However, a Mini 3 Pro drone will not be heard. And unless they're specialist equipment, they won't even know it's in the area, basically. And of course, it can stay and hover on a location and look at something and just move. And so, you know, and because it's the same as when people say, well, what about a camera with a long lens, or your smartphone in your pocket and that type. And I do agree 100% with that. But we do also have to concede in these terms that camera drones are a particular potential issue if somebody wanted to use them nefariously. Now, as we know from the court stats, etc., it's a very, very rare occurrence. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact it has, and whether we suddenly start seeing lots of spies being arrested for using drones around Buckingham Palace or something, or around GCHQ. Who knows? But it's an interesting one. Suffolk Air Adventure, good to see you. Hi, Sean. I get so frustrated that people get upset about being told there are certain responsibilities which go with flying a drone. Freedoms are important, but so is responsibility. And I think that's probably, you would probably have a kinship with that comment, wouldn't you? Because I think that's how you feel.
Yeah, with rights come responsibilities. We got the right to drive on the road. We haven't got the right to drive like an idiot. So, don't fly like an idiot.
Yeah, and it comes back to social responsibility as well, doesn't it? Which is one of the things that I think is always something which is important. So he says as he knows his camera's just turned off again. It's so funny. This will go down as the camera stream. I've actually got a members only emoji, which is a microphone, because I used to hit the mute button on my old microphone before I went on air, so people couldn't hear me swearing when things went wrong. And but then I'd come on air and I wouldn't press it again, so it would be muted, and everyone would be mute in the chat. I now need a new one with a camera with an X through it, so they can all tell me. There we go. Elsmegan and Tazzy with the microphone warning symbol in the chat. Thank you guys, and thank you to all my wonderful.
I like PD Tech's comment about a kite with a camera, because that's how I started in 1985.
No, exactly. There's a really good comment here, actually. And, it is important, again, that I stress that what I'm doing here is bringing you the information. What you do with that information, how you feel about that information, I don't control at all. And I'm not telling you what to do with it either, which is important. I would like to see people flying safely. And I think that, and I have another video on this coming up, I actually think if you look at driving and the level they've gone to get people to be compliant with speeding on the motorway, they have drilled it down over the decades, drilled it down and drilled it down and drilled it down. Now we have average speed cameras. Some countries would be shocked at how speeding is dealt with here in the UK. And we've now basically, if you go on the motorway for large chunks of it, you now have people being compliant, sitting at just below 70. And my issue is the whole thing of the don't comply side of things, is that the more people that don't comply, the more they're going to do to force us to comply. I don't like that. I don't like any side of that, but it is a fact, basically. And that's what I see happening with fixed penalties and with remote ID and things like that. It's compliance. It's not really down to safety.
It's a natural reaction of a government, isn't it? Because it doesn't have that many tools. And most of them they may be sledgehammers.
The regulator, the police, everyone else is told, get these people complying. That's what they need to do. So when AH4 Quad's sake, thank you for joining us. What is the safety records of drones worldwide? To my knowledge, 0.0 deaths. It's not quite 0.0, and it depends how you equate that. The safety of people flying drones is exceptional. I'm not talking about things happening in war zones, Ukraine, or anything else like that, or the other types of drones, but recreational up to commercial level drones, the drones that we talk about on this channel, the safety record is exceptional. Absolutely exceptional. Now, we also now, of course, have a situation where the curve is changing. The curve is changing from the point of view that the type of user that's coming into drones is much more infrequent. It's somebody that will use it occasionally. And the amount of drones being sold of the smaller lightweight drones is increasing as well. But to be fair to the regulators, certainly here in the UK, Canada, and parts of it in the US, we've actually got more freedom here in the UK with a sub 250 gram drone now than we had 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In 2019, to fly a sub 250 gram Mini 3 or something, a similar drone in a town centre, you would have needed a PIFCO, which would have cost you what, 1,100, 1,200 pounds?
Yeah, plus your manual, plus your annual updates and all the rest of it. Plus, in the latest consultation, they're talking about taking that up to 900 grams C1 drones.
Yes. With
the same restrictions or the same lack of restrictions as the sub 250 at the moment, being able to fly over people's heads.
No, exactly. AH Quad's sake saying average toaster deaths per year 700. Yeah, it shouldn't be banned now. And I completely understand. We are not at odds when I say this. Okay, Quad's sake. Oh, look at my hands staying where they are. I think we'll leave it there for the rest of the show.
That's magic.
Actually, looks pretty cool, doesn't it? But the only thing I would say about that AH4 is that if we only regulated for things that killed people, and if we said death needs to happen before we regulate something, then to me that's also a problem from the point of view that, good. But the big difference here, which is what frustrates me because it pushes people into non-compliance, etc., is that what we need is good regulation. And that's the problem, is that I don't think people have seen that very often in this country in terms of drones, in terms of actually, we don't need a situation where we have overreactive, ill thought out drone regulations. I'll sit in there and put my fingers up at the regulator before.
Can I add in badly drafted?
Badly drafted, yeah, all of it. Poorly consulted, if you can even call it that.
Badly communicated?
Terribly communicated.
Yeah.
Awful. And then we end up with a situation where we literally have people at loggerheads, when actually, in my opinion, a regulator should bring the audience with them. And the only way you can bring an audience with you in terms of regulation, of course, is actually by ensuring that you understand them. So, but there we go. Right now,
you're frozen again.
My camera is doing
pushing our luck here.
the also frequent freezing now. So thank you everybody for bearing with us with that one in particular. I do appreciate it. I'm going to wait for it to come back on, and then we're going to say goodbye. But I really appreciate everybody being here. We've had around 300 people for most of the show. We're over 100 likes. I really, really do appreciate it. West Audit Report is saying, when will 900 grams go that way? It will probably be 2026. So once the consultation's gone through, etc., there'll be a 2-year transition period up to 2028. But we should get the benefits of that type in 2026, basically, which will be, there's no reason why not. We've already said C1 drones are safe in the UK skies. It's already in the current, the technically current legislation. So I don't see a problem with it.
It has got to be changed at the legislative level, hasn't it?
Yes, but we've already said once already that actually those drones, the C1 drones are okay. So we can go and use them.
The theory's there, isn't it?
Right. While I've got a camera, I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it, Graham. Thank you, sir.
Bye, everyone.
Your inputs and your wisdom and your friendship is extremely important to me. I wanted that on record. And yes, it's going to be an exciting 2024 for us, isn't it? Hopefully.
I think so. A busy one, I suspect.
Yes, indeed. So there is also a link in the description to iUp Aerials. If you're in the specific category, you're thinking about needing an ops manual, you need some advice on how to get an operational authorization, you want to talk to an OSC holder who can fly a drone at 1,000 feet in the UK. That's this man. Go and talk to him and buy him a coffee, and he'll tell you his life story, basically, and help you out.
The ops manual was described by a client as astounding this week.
Yes, and what was the other description we got this week as well? on one of your ops manuals?
The risk assessment was better than a well-known RAE's beginning with C.
Okay, you're being very diplomatic. Thanks everybody for joining us. Sean out and Graham out.
Thank you.